If I say the word God, a lot of people will think a lot of different things. It's a very nebulous idea. But what if I told you there's a way to play God? Introducing Worldbox, the God Simulator, where we can test all sorts of mayhem and madness. We can choose to be the arbiter of peace or an absolute force for destruction. And today, I'm feeling like it's time for a fight. But not just any fight. So we start out with an enormous and empty world. We're gonna go absolutely huge with this. Not even Titanic, we're going iceberg. And using the smallest brush I can manage, it's time to start drawing. We don't want anybody escaping, so the first thing we're gonna do is surround everything with a wall. Congratulations, I have now made a box. Now, what we're gonna do inside this box is another story. I have successfully created a grid. Are the boxes even? No. Does it matter? No. Now it's time to start making the civilizations that will live in these boxes. So while I'm building, let's lay down some ground rules. Every single island will have exactly the same amount of surface area on it. Every single island will have at least one tree and one rock on it. And every single island will have at least one type of farm animal. All of the societies will start with the same number of starting people. Biomes will be different on different islands, completely randomly, but all of them will be given the exact same amount of time to grow. Every 100 years, there will be a natural disaster. 500 years, all of the mountains will disappear. I will not interfere in any way besides the natural disasters that will happen every 100 years. It is completely up to them to shape this world. So I actually ended up deciding to break up the biomes based on row, meaning that every single row will have a different biome in it. And considering that I've now run out of biomes, I'm actually going to take this last one and I'm going to make it sand. Just give me a second while I get all this worked out and done. Many of you might think I made these islands small because of the fact I had limited space. But I also made these islands small because it'll force everybody to try and invade each other as soon as the mountains go down. They're immediately going to try and go for more space to build on, which means they will inevitably clash. Let me give you a little tour here. So on every single island, we've got 4 different parts. Every single one has some sort of bushes or flowers or something growing. Every single island's got a cluster of rocks. Some of them are normal rocks, some of them are mithril, some of them are silver, some of them are gold. Every single type of rock is represented on some of the islands randomly. And then every single island's got an animal. Now, we've got over 100 islands, so if my fancy editor would real quick just put every single animal type at the top here, that would be fantastic. And then every single row, you've got yourself a different biome. So every single biome is represented here as well. Now on each and every single one of these islands, I just need to throw, a humanoid of some sort. We're going to start out with 3 for each one. Alright, all of these are fully populated. There's only one thing left to do. We're going to let it roll, and when we hit year 100, will be our first travesty. Within the first 10 years, the rhinos killed everybody on their islands. So did most of the monkeys. Oh, look at these guys. They've managed to live on nothing but sand. I think they're starving to death right now, though. Some of them are really booming, though. We're already seeing a huge gap in some of their populations, Like, Uvro right now has over double the population of average. What are they doing different? What's Uvro doing different? Do they just have a really cool king? Or is it their wheat farm? It's probably their wheat farm. As year 100 approached, I slowed things down a bit. At the end of the day, every single disaster is going to be up to me. But we're going to make sure we keep it interesting at least the first time around. So we are going to put an absolute slew of rage clouds. And these will pass over and make everybody underneath them absolutely mad. This is going to sow a lot of discord inside of the societies. With that done, we'll raise the time acceleration back up again. And let the wave go. Also, with the change of 100 years, I have decided I'm going to change the age to the age of sun, and then we let it roll another 100 years. By year 150, the windmills and the piers made a much more distinct difference between the haves and the have-nots. Any society that didn't have one seemed to be maxing out at about 12 citizens, but any society that did have one nearly doubled their population overnight. Also, most of the sand societies have completely collapsed by a year 150. Only a few remain, and they are very sparsely populated. In total, the entire sand row possessed less than 5 people. the population of Soon had a massive explosion, surpassed everybody else by at least 15 people. They have a large standing army and a huge food development plan. Very impressive. After them, we ended up with Eachother and Uvro, with exactly identical populations but completely different biomes, all of them using a windmill as their backbone. In the year 200, I opted for a more permanent disaster. Every single box got an acid geyser plopped down in the bottom left corner. I checked our stats around year 210. Over 1,000 people have starved to death. Soon is still on top for the most populated village, but a society 10 Ras has the biggest village. I don't know what's defined as biggest, as every single one has exactly the same amount of ground. In the year 211, another massive number of kings simultaneously died. And in the year 212, the village of Ode was destroyed, as well as the village of Ephora. I felt giving, so I made the age for the following century the Age of Wonders. In the year roughly 2040, checking in on our favorites, Uvro's still at the same size. Soon has raised by 2 people, up to a total of 43. The Society of Enor has actually whittled down and lost some people, but still appears to be in second place. Next to Uvro, the Society of Zed has managed to actually bring up their numbers quite a bit, as well as the Society of Ivy Voice. Looking over the board and seeing all the societies here, I think it might be time that we try and add a little bit of randomness to the map. Now, you might ask, how are we going to do that? I happen to have a little guy right here, a worm. And if we plop one down, boop, boop, and boop, in each corner, and let time resume, these little guys will begin to start randomly switching out random blocks. They can tunnel underwater, and they can move through the mountains. So they're just going to start adding whatever to wherever they feel like it. Some places might get more land. Some places might get less land. Some buildings might be destroyed by their actions. They might even be able to adjust the mountains. But they're off and they're going to do their thing now. In the year 259, the worms destroyed Soon's windmill. I discovered the first break in the mountain in the year 273. However, both of the islands were uninhabited, so nothing happened. While I wasn't looking, an orc society named Depot managed to raise their numbers up to above Soon, becoming the new dominant village at a population of 45. In the year 300, I sent a single lava cloud across each line of islands. And looking at the death numbers, those clouds kill a lot of people. Many villages did not survive. The lava rained down indiscriminately. But then the rains came. And the rains weren't enough, so I made more rain. Checking in on our societies, Soon has lost about 25% of their population. Enor is right about where it was. Still not doing too good, though. A new society has risen to the top, Eohan. Somehow they managed to avoid almost all of the damage by the lava clouds. Uvro did alright, as did Zed. It does look like they're going to have a permanent reduction to their ability to farm, though. Ivy Voice lost all of their homes. And while the world population was definitely still stable, we lost a lot of people in a lot of villages from that. You know what, considering how bad that was, it's time for the Age of Despair. Looking at Uvro, as well as Zed, funny enough, there actually ended up being a more powerful nation in between the two of them, Imida Sona. They're just barely stronger than Zed. And as the walls slowly but surely come down, these two are bound to duke it out. However, looking through everything and looking through over all the islands, many of them were hit very, very hard by the lava. So in the year 350, I decided to give them a gift. On every single island. Checking in around year 350, Eohan is still the largest population and has actually managed to get much, much bigger, with the first one to go over 50 people. Big things in their future. I spent the years between 350 and 400 preparing something a little bit special for the year 400. Behold, the meteor wheel. On this wheel, I have a number that represents every single square on the map. I am going to spin it 5 times, and those 5 islands are going to be struck by a meteor. Let's do it. Spot 167. Already barren, but now more barren. Spot 132. Blammo. Spot 103. Heel error. No more. 156. Obliterated. Oh, they're mixing it up. Spot 25. Already barren, but now more barren. And with that, we'll be changing the age. I think it's time for a little bit of optimism. It's been dark enough already. We're going to change it to the age of hope. With all the trials and tribulations, the society of Eachother became the new largest society, with a population of 41. But many other societies, like Eachother, are right on their heels. By the year 440, nearly 10 times the number of people had died as were actually alive currently. In the year 450, I wanted to prepare them for the coming war, and at least give them a little bit more of a taste. So, I decided to utilize the worms again, but this time, a lot more. A worm for all seasons. And with the worms released, all hell broke loose, tearing up entire swaths of islands, creating impassable zones for boats, as well as new land that could be cultivated, and destroying mountain pieces, creating connections between old land and new land. In the year 500, as promised, I removed all of the mountains separating the clans, beginning an age of war. Looking over things one last time before we start the timer. I feel like washing the upper left corner, therefore the original people to ever have been first place down. Bad odds. The mushrooms fared much better, but most of their populations are not that high. Soon, one of our favorites did manage to hold out for a pretty long time and never drop below 25, which is respectable, but the rest of them just did mid. However, the society that did live, Taz Dot, actually has managed to settle 2 different islands. This is going to give them a significant advantage in the coming war, especially considering the surrounding populations are very, very small. The orcs and elves have done great for themselves here, specifically with Emiya and Inuad. Depot has gone strong though in the swamp, with a population of 20. Uvro, Amidasona, and Zedged all originated in the savannah, and I have high hopes for them coming in the war. The lemon biomes were of course home to Eachother, and Eachother is still doing pretty strong. Not perfect, but pretty decent. The only thing left down in the island population are some rats with the plague, very useful, and a small society of super crabs who are weightless and wise. Interesting. You know, I might be rooting for the underdog, crab civilization. And with that, we're going to change it to an age of chaos and let time roll. People quickly began making boats and traveling between areas, exploring the newly available land. In the year 550, I decided it might be a good idea to add a little bit of a helping hand. I feel like the map is still very split up and there's a lot of small kingdoms. If they could just maybe reach one another, they'd be able to obliterate one another. So we're going to give them a little walking path all the way around between every single island and make it possible for them all to duke it out. What once was a sea war is now going to turn to land wars. There we are, a land of kings and bridges. Let them fight! Many of them take direct action down these bridges already, waging war on the smaller nations around them and breaking everything down. Since adding the land bridges, the world population has nearly tripled, and as skirmishes continue, things will stabilize more and more, but a lot of kings are dying. And in the year 600, I enraged everyone nearly to the point of insanity. I put up so many rage clouds that the sun was blotted out for years. Considering how red everything was, I just watched the world population tick down, slowly but surely. Checking in on some of our favorites. Washan, surprisingly, has still survived, and actually done half decent. Soon, surprisingly, is still going, but not looking so good. Much of the world has been utterly destroyed by the calamities of war. But funny enough, while there are far fewer societies than what we started with, the population is still nearly double what it was. Throughout the next 100 years, I just simply continued to spray everybody with rage, making sure that all the wars continued till only one was left remaining. By the year 630, most of the societies had slimmed down. We were left with just about 5 major kingdoms, with the kingdom of Eolodora being right in the middle of the map, and the favored society to win at this junction. What they didn't realize is at the year 650, I had a surprise for the most populated city on the map. Now with Aurora receiving the equivalent of a blue shell, 2 blue shells, things were bound to change. By the year 660, the entire split had been rejoined to the original kingdom of Eolodora. Assumedly happy about their victory, Eolodora then turned their sights to the west and started attacking Yishwama and the surrounding kingdoms. At this point, they've got the 4 major kingdoms besides themselves pinned into each corner. In the year 686, Washan finally fell to exterior forces. Sad day for the OG society. Soon was swiped at the same time, but by Eolodora. In the year 700, I grew tired of waiting, and decided that I am inevitable. So I killed half of everybody, which amounted to over 1,400 people. In the year 715, the city of Uvro, yes, that Uvro, actually managed to throne its own king and become the most populated city in the world. By the year 725, Eladra had lost a huge hold to a new kingdom named Hona, who slowly but surely swept in from the east and took city after city without loss. Eladra, not being one to take things lying down, managed to force a counteroffensive by the year 730 and halted Hona's advance. But only halted. They could not manage to retake the city of Assiz, and therefore could not push back down south. Their city, Aurora, was the only southern hold they had, and was completely isolated from them thanks to Ishiyama and Imofo-san. The counteroffensive did not even last 10 years, as Hona pushed back, took Aurora, took Ahmad, took Feon, and is now taking Iosera, the city directly south of Eladra. Eladra fell in the year 747. Soon took over the crown, but I think we all know how that's going to go. Out of nowhere, Ishiwama took Eladra out from underneath Hona's seat. For what reason, I can't tell you. The entire society of Ibikyo is between them and this new holding. It will not hold for long. In the year 750, though, considering my impatience, I decided it was time for an action. Soon, being the largest populated city, and because of all the pressure it's been placed on, in absolute dire straits to try and find a solution that will allow them to fight back, had their scientists cook up something absolutely awful. Something so heinous that once released, would change the course of the war forever. They infected their soldiers with the zombie virus. Quickly, the zombie infection spread. As the infection rose, some societies took it as an opportunity to split off. A kingdom of Feon, a kingdom of Amifosane. None of them could be rid, though, of the infection. The infection raged through Eladra, slowly traveling south. Eladra tried its best against the zombie infection, but was no match. Wheat fields burned as the zombies pushed forward through Candyland, destroying Iosera as they marched further and further south in their deadly campaign. Soon was long gone, but their creation persisted onward. Feon was the next to be hit by the infection. The zombies even made it out to the west, attacking the original city, the original society, and while they were able to repel the infection for some time, it wouldn't be forever. Iosera fell. Then the kingdom of Hona's northern reaches fell. Ibikyo did its best to hold on, In the year 800, dragons awoke from underneath every capital city. Ibikyo rapidly repelled theirs, and none of them survived for more than half a year. The zombies continued moving south until they hit Hona, a massive feast. It only strengthened the horde's numbers. Hona fell in the year 813. With their last northern stronghold destroyed, the kingdom of Toon was about to be launched upon for lunch. Every warrior that tried to fight them just strengthened the horde. Aurore's position, considering the blue shells that had gone off previously, actually gave it a strategic advantage against the zombies. Nonetheless, their numbers slowly dwindled with every attack. In the year 830, the kingdom of Toon fell. And even though it was fortified, in the same year, Aurore eventually had to succumb as well. The zombies got behind the lines. They slowly ate everything. The last vestiges of civilization to the southeast were annihilated. The only two real kingdoms left standing, Ibikyo and Ezrid. In the year 850, I changed the age. Considering everything that had happened, we'd already used Age of Despair, so I decided it was the Age of Ash. In that Age of Ash, aliens appeared over every city. There only being 4 main cities left in the entire world, I let the clock run for a little while. The population had dwindled down below 500, and the total death counts had reached well over 66,000 people. Around the year 875, the zombies finally found Ezrid and began assaulting it relentlessly. Within 10 years, Ezrid's population had been whittled down to near nothing. In the year 900, I didn't add anything to the map. Instead, I used the magnet tool, grabbed all of the zombies on the entire left side, along with all the people I could, and I dropped them all right on top of Ibikyo. Then I grabbed all the zombies and the remaining population I could on the right side, every little person I could, and I took all of them and I dropped them on the remnants of Ridez. And I slowed things down a bit and I let her go. Ezrid fell first. Ibikyo then fell by the year 903. Right at the beginning of year 904, Ridez fell. The world population now is 12. The victors, the population of Ibikyo. Now you might ask, in this world of fire and destruction, what kind of victory is this? What kind of win is this for these people? Well, I'll tell you. You remember the starting island? The original little piece? I've got a little plan for that. Placing some small mountain fortifications, and a little bit of extra bushes on it, even some fresh fertile soil. We clean up the old houses, make sure there's no mountain left over from that terrible storm that happened 500 years ago. We even give them some fresh trees, flowers, and berries to work with. They won't need much since they're such a small population, but they'll be just fine with that as their new starting seed. And we focus it all in, we place it right there, and we hit them with the Great Blessing. Boom! These are our survivors. These are the people that shall inherit the earth, which is now this square. The new city of Sinsk. To reforge an entire empire.